so one of the things that got me thinking about it that led to this campaign in specific was watching the Republican National Convention and then the Democratic National Convention a week later and looking at just the way that men were represented in both, right? And so at the RNC, you've got, almost this nearly homoerotic version of masculinity, of like talking about uh, size of your crowd, size of your this, size of your that, Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off, people coming out to Macho Man. Like it's so, it, it's so arch that it's almost like what if someone was going to do like a drag king show or something like that. That's almost at the level it is, right? And it's performative in a way that is really funny to me, especially from people who are against anyone doing anything that's like affirms their gender too much. If it's someone who needs someone who's trans or whatever, like they're presenting they're so manly all the time. And then by contrast, at the Democratic convention, I just saw a lot of men who felt really secure in their abilities and their intellect and their power and who they were, and who were in, loving and admiring the women around them, whether it's their spouse or their colleagues. And it just struck me as really different. And I think a lot of the times comedy comes from contrasts, and I thought it would be funny to have what feels like a very stereotypical, you know, uh, male targeted political ad for either side of the spectrum, but to have it talk about issues that are both really traditionally alpha male, like macho things, and then things that I feel are more a part of realistic or modern masculinity. There's a ton of lines that didn't make it into the spot because once you come up with something that is a clear premise, it's easy for myself and any other copywriters who are pitching on it to pitch just tons of lines, whether it's, I'm sure we could think about it in our own lives. Like, like my dad didn't really change a lot of diapers, and I change diapers all the time. And that's like a very small part of what I feel being a man is. And I'm not saying my dad's not a man. It was just a different time. But I think the idea of taking things that are as cartoonishly stereotypical as like eating steak and smoking cigars and drinking scotch, and then things that are more realistic, like, braiding your daughter's hair or listening to your wife, and then things that are uh, our version of what's almost so arch and homoerotic, like full-throated endorsement, or a donut that's full of cream, or like, watching the comments was so interesting because it did have this cycle where it went really viral on the left. And then, of course, once it gets to a certain tipping point there, it went viral on the right for people wanting to take it down and discredit it. And a friend of mine who's another filmmaker texted me at one point. He's like, "This is amazing." And at that point, I was freaking out because I was just like, I've lost, not that I ever intended to have control over it, but if you make something that gets seen by enough people, you no longer have control of the story around it, which is